Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into something a lot of people are feeling: the strange and complex relationship between Gen Z and their parents. It's this weird mix of being super close, but also feeling completely misunderstood.
Okay, so let's just dive right in because the numbers are pretty surprising. Get this. The huge majority of Gen Z kids, they actually like their parents. They value their opinions, and a full 93% say they enjoy spending time with them. So this isn't some classic story of teenage rebellion. But, and this is the big but, here's the paradox. Even with all that love, almost half of Gen Z feels like their parents just don't get them. They feel totally misunderstood. So you've got this affection and this alienation living under the very same roof. What is going on here? All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at that core paradox. Then, the two completely different worlds these generations came from. We'll explore the emotional and, the financial disconnect. And finally, we'll talk about how to actually build a stronger bridge. So let's start with that main tension, right? This idea that you can have so much closeness, but at the same time feel so alienated. This isn't about a lack of love. Not at all. It's a fundamental clash of worlds, a clash of lived experiences. And this really shows you where that disconnect comes from. On one side, you've got the parents, mostly Gen X. They were the original latchkey kids, raised in an analog world where you had to be independent and self-sufficient. On the other side, Gen Z, the first true digital natives, growing up completely online in a world that feels pretty unstable, which has shaped these totally different values around purpose and inclusion. Okay, so let's see how these differences actually play out inside the home. I mean, these different upbringings didn't just create different tastes in music. They created these deep, fundamental divides in how they see everything, especially technology and what they value in life. You know, for Gen Z, technology isn't just a tool you pick up and put down. It's part of reality itself. But for a lot of their parents, that smartphone is seen as the #1 cause of the mental health crisis. So you get this huge clash over what's real, what's social, and what's actually harmful. The parents see a problem to fix, but the kids just see an attack on their entire world. And this divide goes way beyond phones. Think about work. A Gen X parent who values pragmatism might think a stable 9-to-5 job is the absolute dream. For their Gen Z kid, though, that same job might feel like a capitalism death march. They're prioritizing work with a social purpose, with clear boundaries to protect their mental health. One person's goal is literally another person's nightmare. So it's not a huge surprise that all these differences in upbringing, in technology, in values, it all leads to a massive communication breakdown. A lot of the time, they're speaking completely different languages, even if they're using the exact same words. To really get to the heart of it all, a Gallup survey asked Gen Z a very simple, very direct question. And wow, their answers tell you everything you need to know about what's missing from their conversations at home. The results are just so powerful. Look, the #1 answer, it wasn't about wanting more money or freedom from rules. It was about their inner world. They want their feelings, their opinions, their stress and anxiety to be seen as real and valid. It's basically a cry for emotional empathy. And here's where it gets really fascinating. This slide shows a massive gap. Parents are worried sick about their kids' mental health and social media use. But those are the exact topics they find hardest to talk about. It creates this really painful cycle of silence, where the biggest worries are the ones nobody talks about, and everyone feels anxious and alone. Now, this whole disconnect gets even more tense when you bring money into the picture. And for millions of modern families, that's a brand new and really challenging reality. So Gen Z is facing some serious economic headwinds, right? Sky-high cost of living, wages that aren't keeping up. So they're relying on their parents a lot. We're talking an average of over $1,800 a month. Just to put that in perspective, that's more than double what millennials were getting. And this support isn't coming from nowhere. It has a huge cost. Half of these parents say that to help their kids, they are actively dipping into their own savings and their retirement funds. It's this incredible financial sacrifice, and it carries a ton of weight. And for Gen Z, the emotional cost is also really high. more than half of them feel like this money isn't just a gift, it comes with unspoken rules, with expectations. And that can really start to chip away at their independence, it can delay them from figuring out who they are, and it can turn a relationship of support into one that feels more like control. Okay, so how do families get through this? I mean, the goal isn't to make all the differences disappear, because that's impossible. The real goal is to build a bridge of understanding right over that generational gap. And that bridge? It's built with a few really key things. First, mutual learning. Parents learn about the digital world. Kids teach them. Second, validate feelings. That means just listening to understand, not jumping in to solve the problem. Third, it's about building a financial partnership, not just offering bailouts. And finally, creating smart tech rules together, as a family, instead of parents just laying down the law.
You know, when you take a step back and look at the big picture, it's so clear this isn't a story about bad parents or entitled kids. It's just a reflection of a world that is changing so fast, it's forcing all of us to rewrite the rules of what family, communication, and independence even mean.
And in the end, the challenge is also the opportunity, isn't it? Because if we can just focus on empathy, on patience, and on being genuinely willing to learn from each other, well, then all these differences can go from being a source of conflict to being the foundation for real collective growth.